Good morning, all. Thank you so much for being here at 8:30 on the final day of Mobile World Congress. We are currently a small but very dedicated group, it would seem. My name is Craig Aldridge. I am the project manager for Smart Cities within the GSMA, and I'd like to welcome you to this session, Mobilising the Ecosystem, Smart Cities. Before we dive into the fantastic content that we've got for you today, which will be looking at the ranking index that has been developed between the GSMA and Sheffield, as well as a number of regional experts from around the globe. I just want to say a couple of words about smart cities and what I've experienced since Barcelona, for sure. The GSMA Smart Cities project is quite a new project. It's only been running for 2 years, and it's really only had a global remit for the last year. But it has become increasingly obvious that the concept of smart cities is no longer that. It's actually a reality. People around the world are actually working towards driving their urban environments to becoming smart. And just based on the conversations that I've had throughout Congress, people are constantly coming up and asking, what is the experience that we've seen? What is it that people are looking for? How can we actually drive innovation in our cities? And that's really, it's really great that that's what's happening, because what it's showing is there's ambition not only from industry but also from governments as well. So that always makes me very happy. I won't bore you to death with with anything else, and I just want to dive right into the content. So, without further ado, I'd like to invite Dr. Alex Peng onto the stage. Alex is an assistant professor at the University of Sheffield. He also works as a consultant in the areas of ERP, smart mobile cities, cloud computing, and Internet of Things. And over the past 5 years, he has produced over 42 publications in the form of books and chapters, international leading journal articles, and full refereed papers in international conferences. So without further ado, Dr. Alex Peng.
Thank you so much, Craig, for a very interesting introduction. So, good morning, everyone. It's my great honor to actually present the outcomes of the projects in this seminar. And I am actually, as you can see from the slide here, so I'm actually a researcher from Sheffield University. I'm actually presenting here on behalf of my team, which involve Professor Tim O'Farrell and Dr. Mariam Kiran over there as well. So we have been working together with the GSMA on this Smart Cities Index project. And as you may actually know from the GSMA website, so the GSMA previously actually developed a set of 31 indicators. So these 31 indicators can be actually categorized into these 4 different types. So all of this information are actually available on our website. Well, when I say our website, it's of course the GSMA Smart Cities website, but because now I actually feel the GSMA is my second home, so I just keep calling this as our website, okay? So during the past 3 days of the Congress, I actually met so many professionals in the field and actually received some very interesting questions, actually from some of you as well. So one of the key questions that some experts have been asking is, why would we need to actually develop a new index like this type? And because nowadays there were so many different type of ranking and index available. Then, of course, I mean, from my opinion, the answer, of course, smart city has been a very new concept. So people, I mean, government officers, industrial experts, and also academic researchers, we have been keep talking about smart cities. But so far, there's no benchmark to actually tell people what position different cities are in a global scale and what smart cities should be like in the future. So it's actually due to this type of background and situation, so we actually developed the Smart City Index. So we actually try to actually motivate city governments to actually make further investment on smart cities and also inform local citizens about their current city's position in a global scale. So if you actually go to the website, you can actually find the details of all these 31 indicators. Then you can actually see for the indicators that we actually include, we actually covered a very comprehensive set of the smart services being available nowadays in the city and also coming in the very near future as well. So this will actually include services like smart meters for energy usage, and also smart sensors being installed in the parking space, and also smart sensors being installed in traffic lights, and also smart education, smart health or mobile health as well. So all of these very innovative services have been covered in our 31 indicators. Okay, so all of these indicators were originally developed by the GSMA. Then when my team actually get involved in the project, then our contribution is mainly related to helping the GSMA to actually dig out the data that is needed for the 31 indicators and therefore produce the ranking of the different cities. So we have been actually spent actually more than 8 months in the previous year to actually work on these data mining tasks. And the data that we have been focusing on are actually publicly available resources. So this actually include newspapers, industrial reports, government websites, or government reports. So we actually make a great effort in order to get the data that we need. And of course, in the middle of the process, we experience the difficulties as well. So for example, some of the data of some cities are not available in English. So in that case, what we have done is we actually try to find out the data that we need by using different language. So for example, I am a Chinese, so I can actually read and speak Chinese as well. So for some data, say, related to Shanghai, then I actually go to the Shanghai website to actually get the data, to actually get the data that we need. And also for data in Dubai, for example, then we actually one of our colleagues can actually speak Arabic. So in that case, we actually go to Arabic sources to actually get the data as well. And actually, sometimes we may not be able to get the direct data that we need from the public resources, but we can actually find the potential organization or department in the government who may actually hold the data. So in that case, we actually send thousands of emails to all these relevant departments in order for them to actually give us the data that they actually get. So we actually have been using all these different solutions in order to get the data for the 31 indicators. Then apart from this, then what we have also done is actually to send a questionnaire survey to the industry in order to connect expert opinions related to the importance of the indicators. Now, related to this aspect, then of course, when you actually look at the city ranking or index in other categories, then you may actually find out the team who actually developed the index, they may actually come out with the weighting system by themselves. We can actually do so, and it would be actually much easier for us to do it in this way. But then from a scientific point of view, we actually think it would not be good for us as researcher or for the GSMA to really just impose the weighting inside the indicator. So instead, we actually think it would be better for us to send a questionnaire survey to the industry and actually ask for expert opinions. And therefore, we can come out with a more updated and more comprehensive view related to the importance of the indicators that we have got. So we actually received 101 highly quality responses from respondents. So I think actually some of you in the room, you may actually help us to actually fill in the questionnaire as well. So actually for all these respondents, we actually want to say a big thank you to all of you. So we actually, so the reason for us to say these are very high quality responses is because for 67% of the respondents of the survey, they actually tell us that they have actually more than 5 years of working experience in the mobile or smart cities field. And actually more than 45%, they actually have more than 10 years of working experience in this field as well. And then 80% of the respondents, they actually say they actually feel very confident with the answers that they actually provide us. And another very important aspect that I need to highlight is all these respondents, they're actually from very different sectors. So this actually involve mobile operators, mobile service providers, and also smart services, equipment manufacturers, and service providers as well. And apart from this type of industrial view, we also have the respondents from research institution, government office, and also from the media, and also training organizations as well. And then all these respondents, they're actually from many different parts of the world. So we actually have the respondents from the USA, from the UK or other EU countries, and from China, Korea, Japan, or the other Asian countries, and also from Dubai, are the Middle East. So it actually covers a very broad area of the world. So we actually connect this type of global view to actually identify the importance of the indicators that we have got. Then based on the responses that we actually collected from the survey, then we actually calculate the weight of the indicator. Then the 6 indicators that we actually highlighted here are the 6 most important ones based on the respondents of the survey. So as you can see here, this involved the NFC point of sale devices. So for NFC, the point of sale device, that is very straightforward for us to understand. Then mobile feedback mechanism, that is related to if the city actually got the mobile facility to actually allow citizens to actually send a real-time feedback to the governors, okay? And then the number of city-sponsored mobile app in the city, and also the current usage of mobile broadband in the city, and also smart video surveillance, so that is related to the number of the smart cameras being installed in the street and in different places in order to increase security in the city. And the last one then is related to open data sets, okay? So all of these are the top 6 indicators that we have found. And of course, apart from the top 6 indicators, then the other, the remaining indicators in our framework are all important as well. But at this moment, and also particularly in my talk today, we actually mainly focus on these 6 top indicators. So then once we actually get the data that we need and also identify the weighting of the indicators, then what we have done, mainly with my colleagues over there in our team, is actually to transform the data into a comparable form and therefore allow us to actually come out with a final score for the cities at the end. Of course, this part may actually sound a bit too academic, so I will actually try to keep it less theoretical. So I'll just go through the key steps that we have done to just give you a general idea about the scientific rigor behind the approach that we actually use. So basically what we have done is to clean up the data in step 1. And then in step 2, we actually use a technique called Z-scores or standard scores. And then in step 3, we actually use the cumulative distribution functions. So we actually apply these 3 techniques to actually clean up the data and also normalize the data as well. So I just give you a very quick introduction about what we have done in this case and explain the reasons why we actually need to do it in this way, okay? So the diagram shown here actually tells us the raw data that we originally retrieved for 2 of the cities that we have got. So we have got 11 cities at the moment in our comparison. So when we actually think about the total number of NFC point-of-sale devices being employed or being deployed in the city, then in the example shown here, we can actually see for city 2, the total number is very high. So they actually got more than 160,000 NFC point-of-sale devices being deployed in the city. And then in city 1, the number is much lower. I mean, the total number is much lower. It's around 20,000. So if we look at the total number like this type, then the very direct message that we will actually get is city 2, in this case, is far more smart than it's much smarter than city 1. That is the very direct message that you may actually get from the diagram here. But then that would not be the correct measurement of smartness, because in this case, we did not really take into account the actual size of the city. Okay, so the total number of the devices being installed did not really tell us the smartness if we actually forget the actual size of the city. So actually in this case, what we have done is actually to transform the number a little bit. So instead of considering the total number of the NFC point-of-sale devices in the city, we actually try to divide the number by using the local geographical size. So in this case, we can actually calculate the number of devices being deployed per square kilometer in the city. And therefore, the number like this type will be comparable across different cities. So once we have done it in this way, then you can see in each square kilometer in these 2 cities, actually in city 1, they actually have far more NFC point-of-sale devices comparing with city 2. Okay? So if we actually do it in this way, we can actually find out in this aspect, city 1 is actually, in fact, smarter than city 2. And also citizens in city 1 will actually be able to find out NFC point of sales in the city more easily, and therefore be able to enjoy this type of very innovative facility. Okay, and of course, it's important for me to actually point out for the indicators that we have got, for example, for NFC points of sale in this case, of course, we can actually use different type of the measurement or different type of indicators to actually measure this aspect. So apart from using the number of NFC point of sale devices, then of course we can also look at the number of users in the city who are actually using the facility, and also, for example, the volume of transaction being done by using these type of facilities. But of course, I mean, when we talk about smart cities and services or facilities like NFC POS, it's actually very new facilities. And because the industry is just so young, and therefore if we actually make the indicator to be too strict, it will be very difficult for us to come out with the data that we need. So for that reason, we actually try to focus on very important indicators at this moment. Okay, so that is some extra information that I would like to highlight related to this aspect. Another example that I can actually give you, apart from the NFC point of sale devices, is actually related to smart meters being deployed in household. Okay, so if you look at the diagram in the left here, so the diagram here actually shows the total number of smart meters being deployed in household in 3 cities that we have got in our comparison. Okay, so we will not want to mention the actual name of the cities, so just to make sure no city is actually feeling embarrassing in this case. But all of these are actually the real data of the from our cities. So if you look at city 2, the total number of the smart meters being deployed in the city is actually very huge, 3 million. So that is a great number. But then on the other hand, for city 1 and city 3, the total number is slightly smaller. But then if we actually divide this total number by the local number of households in the city, then we actually found out in city 2, only 40% of the household actually got smart meter at this moment. But then in city 1 and city 3, actually 80% of the local households, they're actually enjoying the power of smart meter. So from the citizens' point of view, and also from the smartness measurements point of view, then we can actually say city 1 and city 3 would be smarter than city 2 in this case. Okay, so that is the type of logic behind our comparison. And of course, when we actually come out with these results, we actually also reach some very interesting conclusions as well. That is, for smaller cities, it would be easier for them to actually achieve smartness because the size of the city is smaller and they also have a smaller population locally. And therefore, achieving a high percentage of usage of a smart service, it will be easier to be done in smaller cities. But on the other hand, for large cities, then they actually have a large number of population and also a large geographical size. And for cities like that type, the governments and also the business partners will need to invest much more in order to make the city to become smart. But then, of course, on the other hand, when we actually think about smart cities, then smartness is an important aspect that we need to look at. But apart from this, do not forget the market size in the city probably would be something also interesting for many of us as well. So for large cities, it would be more difficult to become smart because they need to invest more. From a business perspective, then we may actually think for large cities like this type, there may be a larger market size involved. So actually, it's exactly for this type of reason. Then, actually, for our team in Sheffield, we're actually working together with the GSMA on another piece of work to actually try to measure the market size of smart city as well. So we try to look at smart cities not only from the level of smartness, but also from the market size as well, and therefore come out with a more holistic understanding about what is the smart cities at this current age. Okay, so that is some extra information that I want to highlight as well. So again, so what we have been doing here is related to the first step for us to normalize the data. And once this has been done, then some of the questions that we actually consider in our mind is, so we have a set of very comprehensive indicators. Then once we actually got the data, and once we actually transform the data by using the logic that I described just now, then we actually get very different type of scores across different indicators. So for example, for NFC point of sale devices, we actually get the actual number of devices being installed in the city. And then for mobile broadband usage, we actually get a percentage about, so what is the percentage of the local citizens being using mobile broadband. And then for city-sponsored mobile apps, then we can actually get the number of apps being deployed in the city. But then the nature of the data for all these indicators, they are so different. And therefore, when we try to aggregate or sum up the scores of the different indicators together to form a single score to produce the index, if we just simply add this up, it would just be like adding apples and orange. So from a scientific point of view, there will be no meaning behind this type of scores. Okay? So in order to actually make sure the scores will actually make sense, then we actually further try to normalize the data that we have get by using techniques like z-scores. Okay? So I will not want to go through the statistical jargon behind this method in too much detail. But the simple formula, or the main formula that we have been using in this case is, for the z-score, it actually equals to the actual number or actual data that we actually get from the city for the indicator, and then minus this by the mean of the data set that we have got, and divide it by the standard deviation. Okay, so by using a consistent formula in this way, we can actually transform and normalize the data that we can get from the different indicators into scores with a single format. So no percentage, no number of mobile apps, and no number of the NFC POS, but only z-scores. And therefore, we can actually get a score that is consistent for all the different indicators that we have got in our comparison and also in our study as well. So the example shown here actually tells you how the results would become different, would look different once we actually apply z-scores in our study. Okay, so for the percentage of mobile broadband, originally we actually got the percentage for the 3 different cities. And then for the number of city-sponsor apps, then of course, then we actually get the number. Okay, so if we're adding 50% with 15 in this case, then of course it would not make sense at all, right? But then once we actually transform all of these scores or results into the form of z-scores, then all the scores in the 2 different indicators, now they are in a consistent format, okay? And therefore, we can actually sum all these scores up in order to find a final scores for the city, okay? Actually, for many index studies, they will actually stop once the z-scores have been calculated. But then from our perspective, we actually think if we actually simply look at the z-scores, none of us can actually simply tell the position of the city in any indicator in the comparison. Of course, at this moment, we only have 3 cities. So if you look at the z-scores, then you can see, of course, okay, for city 3, the score is 1.65 plus. So of course, in this indicator, city 3 is the smartest one, okay? But of course, in this case, we only have 3 cities. Imagine if in the future, we actually bring up the list of cities into 50 or 100, then it will not be possible for us to know the performance of the city by simply reading the z-scores. So for this type of reason, then what we have done is actually to further transform the scores by using the technique called cumulative distribution function, or keep it short, CDF, okay? So once we actually transform all the scores into CDF forms, then all the scores will only have a value between 1 and 0, okay? So if it's 0, that means the city is actually doing better than 0% of the other cities in the comparison. Or if the score is 1, that means the city is actually doing better than 100% of the cities in the comparison, okay? So if we're taking NFC point-of-sale devices being deployed in Barcelona as an example. So for this indicator, Barcelona actually received a score of 0.96. So what it means is that for this indicator, Barcelona is actually doing better or being smarter than 96% of the cities in the comparison. Okay, so that is the logic behind the score that we actually show here. And of course, for all these, so by using this type of mechanisms, then we actually calculate the scores that the 11 cities actually received for the 6 indicators that we actually highlighted just now. So when we actually look at the scores, then we actually found some very interesting results. So obviously, the different cities in our comparison, they have their own strength areas. So for Barcelona, as an example, so as I just mentioned, the city is doing particularly well in NFC points of sale devices and also in smart surveillance as well. So the score is very high, it's almost close to 100%, okay? And then for Hong Kong, it's actually doing good and become strong in city-sponsored mobile apps and also in mobile broadband, okay? And then for Singapore, they're actually very good in open data set and also in city-sponsored mobile app as well. And then for Shanghai, it's actually strong in smart surveillance and also city-sponsored mobile app. Another city that I would like to highlight here is actually Dubai, okay? So actually so many new projects on smart cities have been coming up in Dubai. And for different dimensions, actually Dubai actually achieved a score that is actually above the average level. And actually, in my opinion, this will be a good result because Dubai is actually making quite a balanced development in different aspects of the smart city agenda. So for some of the other cities, when they're actually strong in one or two areas, they may be less good in the other areas. But then for Dubai, in this case, it actually has a balanced development. And also because smart city projects have been coming up in many different cities, then we will actually expect the position of the city in this case will be changing over time as well. And of course, we will actually keep this type of ranking and index in a very living approach. So the scores here will be actually updated on a very regular basis. So that is the main results that I actually want to highlight. So as a part of conclusion, so at this moment, we actually have 11 cities in our comparison. So according to the results that we have got for these 11 cities, they actually have their own strengths and also some areas for further development as well. But also, as I said, because so many new smart city projects are really coming up and have been ongoing. So the ranking or the results or the scores shown here will be changing over time. And then for the GSMA's perspective and also for the Sheffield team's interest, as I said just now, we've actually tried to keep the index, the result in a very living approach and therefore updated according to the real world situation as well. And the final thing that I would like to highlight is, of course, the index actually tells us the smartness of the city. And of course, when we look at smart cities, as we discussed just now, we also need to look at the market size and also, for example, the engagements of the user in the smart services being provided. So all of this will be a part of our future work as well. And I will, of course, look forward to the opportunity to actually discuss with all this future work with you in the future as well. So one last point that I would like to highlight. So for the contents that I actually presented just now, again, you can actually find this from our GSMA Smart Cities website. So all the contents will be there as well. And the last thing, so just thank you very much for listening. And if you have any further questions, then of course we can actually have the Q&A time. And we also got our email address here, so feel free to actually drop an email to any of us. Okay. Thank you.